Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We've had our wax injector for about 3 months now, and we figured it was about time that we actually do a review of it for you guys. I also want to tell you a little bit of the tips and tricks, things that we've discovered. We'll talk a little bit about things I don't enjoy, some of the things I do like, and overall just give you a good informed opinion about whether or not this is a tool that you could use in your studio. So this is the Arbe mini wax injector, and this one actually comes in two different variations. There's one that looks identical to this, but instead of having the regulator on the top, it has a hand pump, and obviously we didn't opt for that one. We went with the air compressor version. The reason I bring that up is because if you're in a studio where you don't have access to an air compressor, or you just don't want one, you don't have a need for one, then you have two options, and it is otherwise an identical machine. So we upgraded to the Arbe Mini wax injector from this guy. This is a comparatively ancient hand pump wax injector that came out of the, I want to say the 70s. It's built like a tank. It's going to run probably forever, but we just, we needed more wax in the pot. We needed to be able to free up our hands. You can tell that if you're injecting vertically with a hand pump, you automatically lose an entire hand, or you have to make it a two-person function, which is just ridiculous. I am going to be keeping this one, so don't ask me if you can buy it. I'm not going to sell it. I don't know why you'd want something so old anyway. We're going to hold on to this one as a backup unit, just in case this one ever fails. As I said, we've only had it for 3 months. Maybe it breaks within the year. I don't know. We'll let you know if there is such a thing. And we don't want to be left high and dry, so we're going to keep this one, just use it as needed. So as a whole, the unit is identical to how we got it 3 months ago, but I have made a couple of little minor modifications to the air supply. Namely, over here we have the incoming air hose, which is connected to a quick disconnect. I'll talk about why I went quick disconnect in a second. Then we go to this black thing. This is a water filter, or a humidity filter, I guess. Essentially what's happening is the air comes in, it flows around some kind of a condenser thing inside, and it scrubs all the moisture out of it so that the moisture isn't going then into the wax injector. And if you've ever tried to inject wax with air on a really humid air, you get a lot of little bubbles and things like that. It just doesn't work out very well. Now, whether or not you have this on your compressor or somewhere in the line somewhere, it doesn't matter. I just happen to have it here because this is probably the only use case for it, so I attached it straight to the machine. From there, it simply goes to a connector into the stock regulator. And after that, that's pretty much the only thing that we added that was major. The only other thing that we've really added, aside from the humidity scrubber, was this temperature probe, which is just kind of like a meat probe. This is actually how it's designed. There's a little copper tube that goes down into the molten wax, and you're supposed to put this probe through into it, and it gives you an approximation of what the wax temp is. So one of the reasons why I switched out the barbed fitting for the quick disconnect fitting is because I simply use my air compressor for multiple things. I have a pneumatic, very rudimentary pneumatic air engraving system over in the other room, and I don't use it frequently enough to hard line in air or even have it permanently set up, frankly. But I like to have the option that I can just quick disconnect, run it over when I need it, and then I'm good to go. So let me tell you a little bit about the things that I do and don't like. We'll start off with the bad news, because there's fewer of those things. So the first thing that I don't really enjoy about this machine is the knob. This is the temperature knob here. It says turn knob until indicator lamp illuminates, temperature going that way. That's all I get. I don't know what this is supposed to be. At the moment, I just kind of have like a little Sharpie marker dot, because I know that that is approximately where I want my temperature probe to be when I'm injecting at about 150, 160 Fahrenheit. But if it's here, I have no idea. If it's here, again, I have no clue. On the old one, they actually had this little plate, and it was a very similar premise. It would have been great if they just had something like this attached to the new one, where I could say, oh, this is about 200, 250, etc. But we don't even have that. The next big thing is I don't really enjoy this regulator. It certainly works as intended, but it's not overly consistent. And that might be because of my air compressor, the compressed air source. It could be the regulator or a combination of the two. I really don't know why exactly it's happening, but basically is it's not consistent. You can see there I just kind of turned the regulator down and it went just below 10. If I was to click this in, you'd think, okay, now it can't turn, now it's locked, right? Now it's just under 10 psi. But it doesn't stay that way. What's going to happen is it slowly creeps up, and I don't have any control over that. So when I go to do my first injection, I have to make sure that it's at the psi that I want. But it's never going to stay there consistently. So again, I don't know if it's the regulator or my air source or a combination of both, but either way, it's a bit annoying, and I would like to see something a bit more consistent and a little bit better, frankly. The last thing that I disliked was that it didn't actually come with the temperature probe. I can't actually take it out right now because it's kind of locked in under this thing. But it didn't come with the temperature probe, so I had to go out and buy that. I think it's kind of unnecessary. If that's what it's designed for, why didn't it come with one? So these are some of the things that I did like about the wax injector. First thing is the on-off switch. The old hand pump one has nothing of the sort. You just simply turn it on and off by plugging it in and out of the wall. I like that as soon as I turn it on, this lamp indicator turns on when the element is active, so that I know that if it's just constantly on, there may be a problem. It's going to get way too hot. So it can be an indicator, but you do have to be vigilant, so it could be a little bit nicer in that sense. But moreover, is you can leave all your settings exactly the way you want. You just simply turn on and off. I know it's a very simple thing. Almost everything has an on-off switch nowadays, but coming from the hand pump one, it's really, really appreciated. I also really enjoy the size upgrade. I know that this one is still classified as a mini wax injector, but it does hold, I believe it's 1 1/3 quart, whatever that means. I translated that into milliliters. It's about 1,260 milliliters, so about 1 1/4 liter, if we were talking about water. I know wax is a little bit different. But anyway, it's much larger than our previous one, so I'm not waiting nearly as long for this to melt as it's being refilled. It's also much thicker walled, so I feel like the element is kind of insulated better and it holds the heat much more consistently, which is really, really nice to have. I know this isn't really like unique to the Mini, but I really enjoy just having this nozzle as well. As you can imagine with the hand pump one, what we were basically doing was taking our mold, putting it on top, and then I would have to manually pump the wax into it. There's some problems with that, obviously. When you pump, you only have so much that you're actually able to push into the mold. So in our case, because a lot of our work is larger, sometimes I'd have to do 2 pumps to actually get it to work, and that can create a line where it started to freeze. This one, being that it's air pressure, it just continually pushes until it can't anymore. So it's really, really nice, making the wax injections much cleaner. And of course, being that the nozzle is push to activate, simply pushing it in, means that I don't have to have another person, or I can properly hold this. I can get a nice even pressure across my mold, and I just push, and it's all done pretty much automatically, whatever I set. So I know that this isn't, again, very unique to the Mini, but I really appreciate it, and I feel like it's definitely an upgrade. It's worth doing, especially if you were considering getting something smaller like this, because I know you can still buy something similar to this still today on like Rio Grande. So let me show you exactly how we use this thing. And by the way, these little tips and tricks and things are going to be aimed at people who are thinking about getting one. If you already have a wax injector or previous experience with one, you're probably doing these things already, but this is more for the newbies, just so you know. So the first big thing that we did that I strongly recommend everyone do if you have a wax injector is screw it into a tabletop. I have attached it at every point because it means that this is now solid and I can push on it. It's ready to go. If you have it something just loosely floating, you can push the thing back, if you apply a little bit too much pressure, and it's just inconvenient overall. I strongly recommend setting up a wax injection station if you have the space to do so. The second thing I'd recommend is this little spill tray type deal. I made this out of some copper plate that I had kicking around. You could make it out of pretty much anything, like aluminum would be fine, something cheaper. This is basically just catching all the little drips, and it's a place where I can put bad injections that I know are going to be recycled in. I know that this tray is clean, so the wax isn't collecting junk off of my table. And it's just a nice, convenient way of transporting, just in general, keeping things clean. Besides the wax injector, I'd also recommend that you get a couple of these other things as well. I have a whole big stack, I have some more back here as well, of these plexiglass plates that I just cut out of acrylic on a bandsaw. Basically what these plates do is they spread that clamping force across the mold nice and evenly. You can hold them like so. Depending on your design, it may be okay to just hold it like this and then push. Totally fine. Before this, we were actually using this clamp. I actually have two of them. These are GoPro clamps. There's like a little mount here. I think they were designed to hold on to like poles or something. Mold clamps are really, really hard to come by. I know Pepe Tools had one. It's in their store, but it's been sold out for years, and I don't think there's any indication that they're going to be refilling it. There's a couple on Rio, but they're really, really expensive for what they are. And yeah, there's just really no good solution when it comes to clamps. So I've been using this GoPro clamp. I just kind of place the thing just off to the one side. Clamp goes in the middle, and it has a really nice amount of force. It holds everything together at the 3/4 inch mold size. It doesn't work so well with my really thick silicone molds, but for that I'm using rubber bands. Because I wasn't able to find any clamps, I simply just bought a box of them from a local office place. It's a size 64 rubber band. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but 64 works for me. Again, it'll depend on what you want. I just bind them together like so. And as I mentioned, I have a whole ton of these plates. So what I'm able to do is basically just get a whole bunch of molds prepped and in line, and I can work through them. I just inject, place, move it on. Inject, place, move it on. And this allows them to cool as I'm working and injecting on other ones. So it's just like a circular system. Injection, cools. By the time it comes around again, it should be cooled off. I can take it off, put it in a little bin or something, and move on to the next one. And one of the other tips that I found that I have no claim to whatsoever, I did not come up with this. I saw it on Instagram, someone who does a lot of injecting. They were using a steel washer. And it is a bit of a game changer, especially with my work being so heavy. What I find with this nozzle, being that it is rather, spear shaped, when I'm pushing the mold in, it tends to want to split the mold open. It doesn't take a whole lot of force to do so. Now what this washer does, you simply put that on top. It stops the nozzle from being able to push all the way through. So this has been our review of the Arbe Mini Wax Injector. It has been a phenomenally huge help for us as a small business. If you're a larger business, there are much more sophisticated machines out there, but for me, this has been awesome. It means that I don't have to have a basically two-person operation anymore, being with that hand pump. I can now work alone. I like having the settings just exactly the way I left them, reproducible every single time. It is a little bit difficult to dial in those settings to exactly what you need because of the inconsistent pressure gauge and the temperature, but I mean, once you get it there, you're pretty much set. So if you're considering getting one of these tools for yourselves, check out our affiliate link down below in the description through Pepe Tools, where they carry this as well as a few other models of the Arbe Wax Injector. So that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that this helped you make an informed decision. I will see you guys in the next video.